everybody, and welcome to Action and Adventure, the Hasbro Universe podcast. I'm your host, Daniel.
And I'm your other host, Callum. And we have got... Is this, I think, a record for the least busy fortnight we've had? Or have we had just one issue before?
We have never had just one... No, not true.
Oh.
There was the Revolutionaries, or First Strike Transformers time. That was one. But then we also put that together with our interview with John. So that was a long episode. This might... Depending on how things go, this might be our record for the shortest episode, depending on how long things go. Because today we have for you Jim Dimensions #1, the first issue in the Jim and the Holograms anthology series. After that, it's nothing. So today we're going to do our very first inaugural segment for Hasbro Universe Ranked. The segment where we're taking every story in the Hasbro Universe and ranking them from the best to the worst. But before we get to that, we do have some news. This news came out just a couple days ago, and quite frankly, it was, it's the thing that we knew was coming, but I was not expecting how this was actually going to come about. And actually, I'm really excited for this. It was announced through, because Free Comic Book Day solicitations are starting to come out from a few publishers. IDW revealed their offering for Free Comic Book Day 2018, and it will be Transformers Unicron, The Darkest Hour #0. So, I guess Unicron actually is getting his own book, kinda.
Well, yeah, I forget how they kind of announced the specifics of it before, but I assumed it would be its own kind of mini, I think.
See, that's the weird thing. They said that, Unicron was coming, and a few places claimed that it was going to be a Unicron comic, but other people were saying, no, they never said there was going to be a Unicron comic. It was just going to be Unicron was coming to the comics. It was a whole deal, but evidently, yes, this is, Unicron has a big old logo and everything, which is a logo I kind of like, but I also kind of don't like, because it does look kind of doofy, and that's kind of why I like it, but at the same time, it's also I see why certain people aren't into it, with Unicron's mouth, literally forming the O. It's kind of funny.
I like it, yeah.
Yeah. But here's the little text. We do know that it'll be written by John Barber, which makes sense because he's kind of been building up Unicron since, what was it, Syndromica? When was?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, when he we first kind of got some hints.
Yeah, the mysterious something destroying LV. I think that one was LV-117.
Yeah,
LV-118 was the one he went to afterwards, I think.
Yeah. But art will be by Alex Milne, which is awesome. I mean, Milne just did a freaking phenomenal job on... obviously he's been doing a friggin' phenomenal job in, More Than Meets the Eyes, but recently with, Rom vs. Transformers, he's shown that he can also do a lot more than just the robots, and so I'm looking to see what he brings to Unicron. And cover art will be by Sarah Petra DeRocher, because the cover is basically that concept art that we saw back in, at HasCon, I feel like. Yeah,
it was that kind of HasCon evening panel. Where, it was really old, that HasCon dinner. I think they had them all in, the sort of big panel room, took them to dinner, and then took them back to another panel room.
Yeah.
But,
it's weird.
Ordered a panel at dinner. Yeah, we saw this, and I like that. Yeah, I think it's Starscream and RC that get kind of Mike Wazowski'd by the big kind of corner box that Free Comic Book Day things have.
Yeah, which a lot of people I saw were thinking that was trying to cover up spoilers, and it's no, that's just Free Comic Book Day books do that just so that stores can put their logo on that, as promotion and all that. But anyways, let's get to the solicitation text.
Yeah.
Not a whimper nor a bang. The end comes with a squall of entropy shrieking from the ravenous maw of death itself. The message is clear. Unicron has arrived. The Transformers lock into a desperate bid to save Rom's homeworld from the World Killer. But why has Unicron chosen this world on his path to Cybertron and Earth? The biggest story in the history of Transformers starts now. For Unicron's arrival can mean nothing less than the end of a universe.
Oh, yeah.
So, this podcast will be coming to an end in 2018, because clearly they're destroying the universe. So,
yeah.
I'm kidding, of course. Even if the universe is destroyed, we will figure out something to do with this show.
Clearly it's microspace. Just
yeah.
Buy microspace. You're the disposable universe.
Wasn't microspace already getting destroyed by the entropy cloud? Oh, it said entropy. Boom.
But like Oz is out there kind of like putting things right now, isn't he? Like that was our sort of resolution, was that Oz and the time travelers are maybe somehow kind of going to fix things. Which was all kind of vague, because a lot of things about Micronauts ended up being kind of vague. But there we go.
I mean, microspace is literally kind of more of a plot device than anything, I feel like sometimes. So we get, it's pretty much, this is obviously a Transformers branded book, and it is Unicron, so the Transformers are going to be the central players, but they do acknowledge that this is going to be, the third event. And I'm sad to say that I did kind of predict that, I was thinking that Alonia would probably be, a victim of Unicron, because that would be a big thing to shake up Rom, would be, the rest of the Soul Star Order is destroyed, and now it's just these few remaining Space Knights and all that, but, we don't really get any other mentions towards any of the other kind of, properties, which, but does make sense, because Transformers and Rom are kind of the big space guys. That's the thing. We don't have a ton to go on more than we did previously, but it is interesting that this gives us sort of our first little glimpse at what'll be happening in the 2018 event. So,
and it's and of course, kind of a lot of people have now picked up on. After the kind of revelation, he'll be going for Alonia first. And the text sort of alludes to it in a bit, because the text explicitly asks the question, why has Unicron chosen this world? And everyone seems to be hopping onto the idea that is that reason, the fact that Alonia is full of the Space Knight ore that is probably a Regenesis ore. Let's face it.
The fact that it was called an ore in this universe means it most definitely is a Regenesis ore.
Shockwave is responsible for everything in this universe, so kind of being responsible
really
for the Space Knights is just that's just fitting. Of course, Shockwave is responsible for the Space Knights existing. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see what I'm actually legit trying to think of what he isn't responsible for. He's pretty much he's pretty much responsible for everything. Heck, he's even responsible for Hearts of Steel.
It's responsible for Hearts of Steel, and thus kind of basically the whole plot of Revolutionaries.
Yeah.
By bringing the talisman to Earth. He brought the Dinobots to Earth, and thus kind of kicked off a lot of the sort of Skywatch stuff in Infiltration. And also just all of the Asians, because
he was responsible for Baron Karza deciding to come to Earth in the first place. Remember, because of War 13.
Oh, right, yes, yeah. No, it's and in fairness, a lot of it is it's via just him putting the ores everywhere. But everything is Shockwave's fault.
But so it's going to be interesting to see, what happens with Unicron. Obviously, we're going to get. I feel pretty confident saying that we're going to get some build up to him in Transformers vs. Visionaries when that comes out.
It does feel that way now.
Yeah, I almost hate to say it, but it almost feels like Visionaries is going to be sort of similar to Revolutionaries in that it sort of bridges I could see it potentially bridging the gap between some of the stuff, especially if everyone's prediction about Unicron eating Prismos is true. So,
because this is Free Comic Book Day is May, and so so actually, this will come out the month after Transformers vs. Visionaries ends. I think. Well, that's assuming Transformers vs. Visionaries continues to come out on time.
Yeah, just put a little asterisk.
It's a risky assumption to make.
I feel like whenever we talk about any sort of scheduling thing, we just need to put infer that a little asterisk is right next to whatever we say.
Yeah. It really is. And I guess also it's the Falling will probably be kind of ending around May, I guess, either May or June, depending whether it's 5 or 6 issues.
Yeah. So the Falling will also be building up towards Unicron, which, I mean, we've kind of been
assuming that we're right in assuming in theorizing that Onyx Prime is tied into the Unicron story somehow. But I feel like that's pretty firm at this point, I reckon.
Yeah, honestly, I guess my biggest question, about this is how much of this, blurb is accurate. How much of it is are we seriously going to see? I mean, there will be a status quo change. I feel very confident saying that. But are they seriously going to pull a Crisis and reboot the universe? I mean, I can't imagine they'll stop making. They're not going to stop making Transformers books. Chris Ryle will probably not let them stop making ROM, which I love you for, Chris. Just FYI. But it's it is a question. They are saying Unicron's arrival can mean nothing less than the end of a universe. The end of one universe doesn't necessarily mean that does mean the beginning of another universe. So, could we be seeing a reboot? I'm not necessarily saying I would want that, but I'll be honest. I would be potentially interested in seeing that, quite frankly.
I mean, I can sort of see it in that is the answer to sort of how do you follow the Barbots era, which is sort of widely considered sort of the golden age of IDW Transformers comics, is how you follow it by saying, okay, let's say we can't follow that. Let's sort of literally wipe the slate clean and do some kind of reset where, I don't know, it'll be. I don't think you would. Yeah, you obviously wouldn't just literally burn everything to the ground and start something brand new. But I don't know, you'd almost do something it's kind of the universe is sort of born again, but there is some kind of survivor character from the old one that sort of stays around as a sort of a point of view character for a bit or something. But I think even that seems a bit extreme, and I think it is probably just solicit hyperbole, probably.
Yeah, I certainly hope. I mean, I don't want, while the idea of starting over from scratch, and because, let's face it, there has been a lot of finagling with, the Hasbro Universe and, with, working G.I. Joe and all that. And while I do see the potential of, and why, and I could see some cool stories coming out of a universe reboot, it's certainly not it's certainly not my first option. I don't want it. If it does get rebooted, I would, and also just because I'm a fan of these characters, I would probably, still, check it out. But, yeah, I think I don't think this is going to be the end of the Hasbro universe, let alone the Transformers universe, so.
Yeah, right.
But, I think it's worth, kind of speculating and considering the possibilities,
Right. Actually, just sort of one last thing on this solicit. I am intrigued by the fact that it is Transformers : Unicron : The Darkest Hour, and it leaves me wondering just that. That's you got two colons there. I don't know. I find myself wondering about the significance of it being kind of having the subtitle of The Darkest Hour. Is there going to be sort of more than one Unicron book as part of this event, or is kind of the Darkest Hour could be used as like a strapline across multiple books. Like you'll have kind of Optimus Prime will become Optimus Prime the Darkest Hour for the duration of it or something. I don't know. Yeah, it struck me as weird to have kind of a second subtitle.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Darkest Hour sounds like a story title, you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely could understand, like, you know, it's one of those things, like, Unicron, the Darkest Hour, like, you know, makes sense as a title. And it might have been one of those things they put Transformers on it the same way that they've started for First Strike to put Transformers G.I. Joe on, above things to sort of to indicate, hey, this is this franchise, you know, that you like. So
that is a good point. Yeah, did it just begin as Unicron the Darkest Hour, which that kind of is reasonable, and then gets kind of Transformers appended to it for marketing reasons? Because I imagine there are probably there will be lots of people who just tell their comic shop, oh yes, pull every Transformers book for me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that like. That's what my comic shop, I say, anything Transformers, pull it for me. But it's like, it was one of those things, like, when G.I. Joe ended and it was Scarlet Strike Force, because it lacked G.I. Joe, they didn't put Scarlet Strike Force on my list. So I had to go back and double check and be like, hey, I want Scarlet Strike Force, and all that. So, you know, I think that, you know, it's marketing ultimately, you know, like titles like this, it's marketing. So, but it would be cool if they played with it, like transform, like, you know, and instead of like, and have it be like, you know, like the tie-ins would be Optimus Prime, the Darkest Hour #1, ROM, the Darkest Hour #1, that kind of thing. I think that would be a cool thing to do. But
like I could very much get, given the sort of kind of like threat level of Unicron, I would definitely be into them doing the whole kind of like Red Skies thing, and have just kind of have the individual books having kind of their stuff going on, and kind of have all, well, I guess kind of like, I mean, kind of what First Strike did to an extent, but have kind of pull the sort of biggest characters into the main miniseries, and then have the supporting cast kind of continue to react to Unicron's presence off in their own books, and sort of everyone has their own Darkest Hour bit.
Dude, a whole issue of ROM while he's in the main mini, a whole issue of ROM that's just Darby and Camilla fighting Dire Wraiths.
Like, that's it.
Tell me that would not be awesome.
It's a good opportunity for that kind of thing. Like, like how we got kind of the Primeless story in Optimus, which let us focus a bit more on the sort of, to a degree, like criminally under-focused on colonists and Thundercracker a bit and stuff. And, and like, I mean, and because Unicron is such a big kind of all-encompassing threat, you could actually have kind of them have it focus on the other cast members, but still have it be sort of tied into the Unicron event, unlike say the Micronauts ROM First Strike tie-in, where it's just kind of we're a bit more free to do evil stuff because everyone's on Cybertron.
Yeah,
like a Unicron tie-in. Well, they could literally have Red Skies if Unicron turned up.
Oh yeah, definitely. But anyways, I mean, I'm looking forward to this event. Definitely this Free Comic Book Day issue. So yeah.
Like I wonder if it will continue immediately in like June, or whether sort of it will be a little while before the kind of the issue 1 comes out.
Yeah, it's that's a good question. You know, Free Comic Book Day is obviously like one of those big places where they like to push the big events. A lot of publishers do, you know. So you know, like or any big titles. I mean, heck, like IDW did that a few years ago with ROM. You know, they put out the Free Comic Book Day issue, and then, you know, it wasn't until July, 2 months later, that he got his first issue. So, you know, we could see, like I could see this launching immediately after, but I think in all likelihood we'll probably launch around September, the same kind of time that First Strike and Revolution did.
Although then you then fall into the trap, though, of would it end up spoiling the end of possibly the final storyline of
I don't think so. I think they probably planned for this to be a Free Comic Book Day thing, and if that's the case, then they would plan according to that. It's like it would only really be a problem if anything was running late, and admittedly that does then it's like then the Falling, then there's still like some stuff between the Falling and Unicron, but we shall see. I could see it going either way, quite frankly.
And it is interesting that the characters reacting to Unicron on this are all Earth and Cybertron based ones. Like there is no kind of like Hot Rod or Megatron in this group shot, which I mean it may not even be literal reflect. Well, no, the specific circumstances of them standing somewhere gazing up at Unicron definitely isn't going to be a thing that happens in Zero issue, but it is like primarily John Barber's characters, or his characters that are showing up in Optimus Prime as of the Falling, like Windblade and Starscream. And Bumblebee, who we pretty much all knew was coming back eventually. At this point, it is super obvious that something is going to happen with Bumblebee. And presumably he's going to come back in his Evergreen body, because everyone is in their Evergreen bodies now. Because Windblade is as of First Strike, Soundwave is as of First Strike, Starscream is as of, after Revolution. Actually, because I don't know about the RC. I guess you only see her back. But the RC on this cover, on this art at least.
I feel like that was her first strike. Her First Strike design was her Evergreen design. I mean, granted, RC is not a character whose design really changed that much, but
she's just in First Strike. She just kept her sort of regular Earth car body, didn't she? That she's had for a while.
I think, but I that's the thing. I'm thinking that might not be too different from her Evergreen design because.
Well, I mean, it's possible. Like a lot of the kind of. At least, the Grimlock Evergreen design is kind of that straight up based on kind of Nick Roche's IDW Grimlock, so yeah.
So Unicron is coming. He has a logo and everything. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Alright. Now, let's talk about something that is truly outrageous. Truly, truly, truly outrageous. Gem Dimensions #1. Clearly, this is the start of a brand new story where Jim will travel across the multiverse after her infinite story. Oh, what? No. I am being informed that this is an anthology book with various stories about side characters and the characters in different points in time in the IDW Gem continuity, which is going to be interesting for me because I still have not gone back and read Gem, unfortunately. I really do. I will probably over winter break finally just break down and buy all the trades and go through them. So this issue has two stories. Catnap, which is by... let me see if I can pull up the creative team, which is by Sophie Campbell, written and drawn. And then our other story is Roll With It, written by Kate Leth, with art by Tana Ford. Let's talk about Catnap. So, Callum, what did you think of Catnap?
Well, before getting into the specific stories, I do have to sort of bring up the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm guessing it's probably Sarah Gaius, the editor, I have to thank for the chronology notes on the credits page for when the stories are set. That sets my heart aflutter. Because Catnap is noted to be set before the events of Gem Infinite, and Roll With It is noted to be set after the events of Gem Infinite. And I assume that, I wouldn't have expected them to reasonably get any more specific than that. I doubt the writers are thinking any more specific than that. But, I'm there for that content. Chronology notes on the credits page. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, Catnap, it's... Well, yeah, it's cool to have Sophie Campbell back because I forget. I think she did the first 2 main stories on Gem. I think it was the first 2 main ones. I don't remember. But yeah, it's nice to have her back on art and writing as well, which is that's cool to get. But yeah, kind of. I think a lot of people sort of like I've enjoyed most of the artists they've had on Gem, but I think for a lot of people, sort of, Sophie Campbell was kind of the Gem artist, and so it's certainly nice to have kind of her back doing stuff again, and she does draw very nice Gem characters, we get new Gem characters. New to IDW Gem characters in this issue, which is cool. Because I forget. I think basically everyone apart from like Clash and the core Misfits in this hasn't appeared before. But I forget the specifics of kind of the origins of some of these characters. Like I think some of them like graphics and video, at least I think maybe like have their roots in kind of unproduced Gem toys or something. I'd need to look it up, but kind of at least some of these new characters have their roots to some degree in the original toy line and possibly cartoon. Because I think the cartoon had something characters that were going to be toys, but then the toy line got shut down before.
According to the IDW Hasbro wiki, Video was a recurring character in the original Gem cartoon, and Graphics was an unproduced doll for the toy line. But she did get a doll from the Integrity Toys a new line. Yes. So
I remember looking at a bunch of pictures of that line a while ago.
Yeah. While Misty was a name that was in the early Gem pitch, but the character got turned into Jerrica, so they just repurposed the name for a brand new character. And then Shade seems to be an original character, so yes. Shout out to the IDW Hasbro wiki for having our backs on that. But
it's a nice little story. I will always appreciate Madmartigan content. Just Pizzazz's cat, he's great. I feel like, and this is a really weird thing to bring up, but like his eye color is inconsistent. I'm sure. Like sometimes he's got blue eyes and sometimes he's got green eyes. I swear. I don't know why I'm concerned about that. It's a cat, but yeah.
Cats it's a weird magical creatures in my experience. So one's eye color changing is not unusual for me. It's like just a cat. I figure they all couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's a fun little story and feels in the spirit of like the Gem cartoon or something, in that it is just sort of slightly nonsensical kind of hijinks in a sort of like fun setting of a ski resort, and it's all a bit sort of silly on purpose, which I'm always into, and a good time can be had with the story. It's fun.
Yeah, I actually really liked this story. I mean, especially like not having the context for a lot of for a lot of the Gem stuff outside of what I've heard from others and what I've read in Infinite. I didn't really know Clash or any of the other characters. And granted, I believe a lot of them got introduced for the first time in this story. But it was one of those things, like, it was just a fun little story. I didn't feel like I needed much background aside from the basics of, there's a band called the Misfits, and, and Pizzazz has a cat. But it was a really fun story. I really liked. I really like Sophie Campbell's art. It was just a fun kind of side story with, and a lot of the characters. I really like their very distinct character designs. That I think that was one of the coolest things about, and is one of the best things about Gem overall is just the character designs. But this book, each of the characters had very clearly defined personalities and looks to them. I really liked. I will say this: I really don't like Shade video and graphics because, like, they just seemed like total assholes to me because, like, who the hell steals a pet? I'm sorry, but for me, stealing pets is, like, one of the worst things you can do, okay? Like, it is just one of the most evil, asshole-ish things that a person can do is steal a pet. And that is just, like... And apparently, like, they were supposed to be fans of the Holograms, so it's like, that's... You're mean, that's not good. Holograms would not approve of that. Don't steal pets.
Yeah, like, I'm thinking of the, it's a gag in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think, where, someone reacts, but yeah, don't associate yourselves with us. I'm just imagining, like the Holograms reacting to this bunch, like, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, like, Clash, like, not sensible to take a cat literally take the cat out skiing with you. Like,
yeah, don't do that.
That's not safe or sensible.
No. I mean, based on my experiences with cats, that not taking a cat skiing, obviously, but but just based on my own experiences with cats, that would result in a lot of scratches on, like, your shirt and underneath. That would not be... I can't imagine that would be pleasant for anyone involved.
I do like Madmartigan's little kind of, like, well, it's kind of, romper almost. And a little scarf.
Yeah.
In pizzazz colours, obviously.
Well, obviously. Yeah, and I did, like, I also really dug the I don't remember who it was. I think it was Shade had, like, some sort of weird sonic device, and then, like, Clash combated that with her voice.
It's Blaze.
Or Blaze. Yeah. Sorry. I'm getting the characters all mixed up. But yeah, Blaze, like, combated that with her voice, and I'm just like, oh my god! This is the kind of like almost like out of this world kind of silliness that I really dig, like, in something like this. So I love that.
Yeah, that's some
scene.
proper, like, cartoon stuff. You're sort of like visualized singing and literal music battle thing. Like, I love that kind of stuff.
Which, I mean, like, that works for something like Jim and the Holograms, because let's face it, I mean, Jim and the Holograms, when your whole conceit of your franchise is pop stars with super advanced computer technology, throw some more fantastical, cartoony elements in there and make this a more cartoony world. It's kind of almost absurd humor that I like from stuff like Phineas and Ferb and all that. So, I am definitely a fan of this story. It was great.
Oh, actually, it was nice to have sort of, like, kind of made sort of explicit as well that Blaze and Clash are dating, because it was sort of, like, vague as to whether they were just friends or dating in kind of the original ongoing. So it was neat to have that have that confirmed in this.
Yeah. I imagine it was. I can't comment for myself because I haven't read it. But yeah. So I definitely liked this story. And I think this was actually my favorite story in the book. Of the two, I like this one a little bit better.
Oh. So I guess that takes us neatly on to Roll With It, which was our second story. The Caleth Tana Ford one, which is about the Holograms playing Dungeons and Dragons. Because I feel like it's the rules that everything ever has to have an episode where the characters play Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that's just how it goes. Yeah.
I mean, especially nowadays, because I don't know about you, but it seems like nowadays, like, and I partially blame I partially attribute this to Stranger Things. It seems like everyone's getting into Dungeons and Dragons these days, like, which is admittedly a little weird for me, because I'm like, I've actually never been able to really get into D&D, so it's one of those things, like, feels like all these people are into something that I am like, I don't really have a lot of the context for, But this was it was a neat little story. I'll admit I didn't love Tana Ford's art. I much prefer the more rounded, kind of, for lack of a better term, bubbly art, I guess, of Sophie Campbell and who worked on the Infinite books? I can't remember, but
Jensen Onge or however you pronounce it, and I don't remember who was doing holograms now off the top of my head. Jen Hickman.
Yeah. I don't know. The art in this Tana Ford's art, it wasn't bad, but it was like a bit too ink heavy at times. I don't know. It just wasn't. It was different from the other stuff in kind of a weird way.
It's less cute than your average IW Gem art style. Yeah,
exactly. And not bad, but it did kind of throw me a little. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, a lot of it was like it wasn't a bad story, but honestly, it was one of those things for me. It was just like, kind of like they're sitting around, everyone's annoying Jerrica. They're like, I don't know. I guess I would have liked more if it had just kind of focused on them playing as and maybe cutting between them and the campaign. But yeah, it was one of those things. It was just kind of it was a decent story, but nothing really stand out about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it didn't focus on the sort of actual Dungeons and Dragons adventures. I was expecting to have the sort of the approach to it where you enter the imaginations of everyone, and sort of the adventure kind of plays out as if we're the campaign plays out as if we are watching it directly, kind of thing, and with the real world being bookends effectively. But I mean, it was a perfectly good story, I'd say. But I would agree that it's probably my second favorite of the two in the issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not really saying much, to be fair, but yeah.
It has to be a winner. It has to be a winner.
Yeah. But I will say I did love how when Jerrica kind of got forced into the DM position, and she clearly does not want to play, and yet she's the DM, and then Kimber's pissing her off, and she's just like, that's it, giant dragon destroys you all, you're all dead. It's like, I did love that moment. That was a great moment. But yeah.
One thing that sort of, this obviously won't have come out for you because you haven't read it yet, but one thing that sort of I did kind of feel a bit with was the fact that it's the whole kind of the idea of the story is that sort of with kind of everyone kind of underappreciating Jerrica and sort of kind of letting her sort of take on sort of everything herself is kind of a bit retreading one of the earliest stories from the original ongoing, kind of immediately after sort of the holograms blow up into a big thing. Kind of the same themes of sort of everyone kind of being a bit inconsiderate of Jerrica and letting her kind of do all the sort of legwork for them was kind of a thing that was the story back then. So it feels can obviously it's an anthology series, but it did feel that's separate from kind of the original book. But it does feel a bit sort of cartoon characters sort of failing to learn the moral of the episode kind of thing, in that they're doing the same thing to Jerrica they did before. Poor Jerrica.
Yeah, so it was a decent story. It was one of those things, a lot of it was Dungeons and Dragons references that I don't get, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah,
I don't have the context, but I did enjoy all the sort of their kind of character designs. I am not entirely sure. I don't know what a tiefling is. Is tiefling? What's one of them? I don't know. But just it's cool to at least look at all the character designs.
If you'd like to tell us what a tiefling is, we ask please go to our iTunes page, leave a 5-star review, and then just comment what a tiefling is.
Yeah,
But sorry, you go.
I do want to say, whilst kind of talking about the artness, it's curious that when they were in the board game room, there is a bizarre mix of actual Hasbro games and genericized for no real reason Hasbro games. Like, they've got Battleship, right next to Jongo.
See, now when is Battleship going to join the Hasbro universe? I mean, come on, man.
Why is it Jongo? It could be Jenga. Hasbro owns Jenga.
Yeah, that is weird.
And like, they got like Ouija, which just I still find it hilarious that just Hasbro like owns the trademark on and sells Ouija boards. But
yeah. See, now honestly though, like thinking about all these in the same like place just gets me thinking, what if there's like a Hasbro shared universe but just with the board games? Like Battleship, Monopoly, and Candyland all in the same universe.
Actually, because we got Candyland here. Yeah. What is presumably Monopoly, although we only see the poly. Trouble is there a board game beginning in Trouble that I'm not thinking of?
There's a board game, Trouble. Yeah, it's the one with the little ball that has a dice in it, and you pop it, and the dice goes round. You know? Are you? You're not familiar with this game? Really?
I mean, I'm aware of a game that's got a sort of poppy dice thing in the middle, but not under the name Trouble?
Huh.
Oh, okay, here we go. It's not called Trouble in the UK. It's called Frustration in the UK.
Oh, you British people with your big fancier words.
They've got Guitar Hero.
That was funny. I liked that. But yeah. But no clue. I mean, does that game just not exist in this universe? Considering, it's a valid question.
And I can't work out what this one that's partially covered by the first panel is.
Let me flip.
It don't something, don't. I mean, like it looks like it could be Don't Cat, but that's clearly not a board game. Don't Oat, also probably not a board game. I mean, it might not be Don't. I don't know. DON.
Yeah,
something.
no. I'm trying to think.
Wait, hang on. If I use asterisks, can I pull this up in a Google search? Don't asterisk space asterisk. No, I'm not going to get anything useful.
Yeah,
no, I guess it's not.
Yeah, I can't really think of what that could be. But yeah, this overall Gym Dimensions.
Wait,
fun little, or is there anything else?
Clue is there. You can see the playing pieces, and I think possibly it's covered by Kimber's speech bubble. But you can see the playing pieces where they've got the sort of that's like a really weird, that's kind of like, I don't know, a bit like a chess piece, but with a kind of like ball, and then it kind of like stretches down out into a cone to a big base.
Aha, yes.
Also, like a ladder, a tiny ladder.
It's for three-dimensional chutes and ladders. So anything else in regards to?
No, I think we get profiles for some of the characters from Catnapped at the end.
Oh yeah, and I really do like these profiles. I'm a sucker for character profiles in general, but I really did like these, just because especially for the fun stuff, like guilty pleasure spying on the for video, guilty pleasure spying on the holograms. Was prized possession, a body pillow she made herself with Kimber printed on it. Yeah, so. voted most likely to be watching you right now, which admittedly was a little creepy, but yeah, I definitely like these profiles.
Whenever you get profiles like these in comics, the thing I always end up just sort of like inadvertently doing is just comparing my height to the character's height. Like, I am taller than Graphics and Misty, but shorter than Shade and Video.
But yeah, so it is nice.
Actually, yeah, who is taller out of Video and Clash? Because yeah, they are both very tall. But Clash must have had a profile. Oh, here we go. Because I'm me, I pulled all of the profiles out into a separate CBZ. They're both 6'1". They're both really the exact same, really tall.
But yeah, so Gem Dimensions. It looks like it's going to be a fun book. We'll have to see. Obviously each story, is going to be a little, because of the different creative teams, is going to be like, we'll see what story. We're going to have some good stories. We might not have some not great stories. Definitely Catnap was my favorite story in this issue. But yeah, so I enjoyed it though. So, and hopefully by the time the next issue comes out, I will have read more Gem, so hopefully I have more of a context for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. Alrighty. Well, with that out of the way, I think it's time to rank.
Yeah, at long last.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, you said, it was episode 10.5, I think, we first announced it.
And we're currently recording episode 16?
It's 16, yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
16. So, yeah. And of course that was technically like 10.5, so it was technically an extra thing, just because, you were out that week.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. So for those of you who did not, who don't know what this segment is, this is something we announced a while back. This is our new segment, Hasbro Universe Ranked, where we are taking suggestions from our listeners and compiling a list of every single story in the Hasbro universe and then ranking them from the best to the worst. Our current rankings this was sort of our barometer that we came up with to judge each story, so currently our number one story, the best story of the Hasbro universe as of right now, is Transformers Last Stand of the Wreckers. Which I think anyone who has read that can agree it is a really good, solid comic. Below that, at number 2, and so far our worst story in the Hasbro universe, is The Fall of G.I. Joe, the Karen Travis run of G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe Volume 4, whatever you want to call it. Because, let's face it, me and Callum both can agree that's pretty bad. And, and that's the thing. And as we go through with suggestions from our listeners, these may change. There's nothing guaranteeing that Last Stand of the Wreckers will stay at the top, and there's nothing guaranteeing that The Fall of G.I. Joe will stay at the bottom. It's going to be really disappointing to find something that's actually worse than that, admittedly, but,
Yeah, Fall of G.I. Joe, it's at the bottom because it's boring, but I don't know, is there anything that would beat it for being, just...
The fact that it doesn't really focus on G.I. Joe, for one, for me, personally, but...
The Fall of G.I. Joe is a really competent, boring story. It's sort of... The art is good if you like really gloomy, grey art.
See, I don't like the art, actually, but
the art is sort of, technically it's good. It is, people look like people, and it's sort of consistent. It's just really dreary and really realistic. So, it's... But, I thinking of stories with worse art off the top of my head, Heart of Darkness, I think, will always be my sort of number one worst drawn series, just because, oh my goodness, Ulysses Farinas can draw aliens great, He draws really nice crab aliens when he is allowed the chance to, but he can't draw Transformers at all. Oh my goodness.
So we have 2 lists today. These lists were submitted via our allspark.com thread, forum thread. And that's one of the ways you can submit to us, or you can submit to us on our Twitter with the hashtag #rankedsubmit. Or you can send us an email with ranked submissions in the subject. And basically, we've instigated a rule, just because we don't want to have people suggesting too many stories, we've instigated a rule of the maximum number of stories that can be submitted are 3. And of course, we are focusing on stories, not necessarily series. So that'll also factor in, although we will kind of have to gauge, with each entry, what defines something as a single story, and that'll make for some interesting discussion. So, without further delay, let's take a look at our very first list. So this comes from Broadside on the Allspark, and she is nominating G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds, Transformers Ironhide, and the first half of the Siren Song story arc from G.I. Joe Volume 3 that was originally intended to be like its own separate annual. So I guess we'll just go in the order that Broadside suggested. So G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds. Now, technically, this is 10 stories.
My opinion is that it's a short story collection, and I'm of the opinion that Hearts and Minds is as a whole is a singular work.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things that when Broadside first brought it up, I was thinking a little too pedantically about what counted as stories. But the more I thought about it, and especially because it was released as, as G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds, Hearts and Minds, a G.I. Joe graphic novel later on.
Yeah.
I that was definitely one of those things that was okay, this is a, this can be counted as a single work. However, that does mean that we have to take all the stories and kind of take them all as a whole. Now, personally, G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds, I thought is decent, but honestly, it's one of those things. It does this thing that comics that kind of bugs me about comics, where it does and it really this takes a lot of it's hard to do well, and for me as a comics reader, but it does this thing where it's holds on a single shot. And basically, it's almost feels like someone wrote this for a movie, for a movie script, where it's single shot and then hand comes up or something like that. It's and I feel a lot of the times it could do that a little bit too much, and it that definitely did not appeal to me. I thought G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds was just, it was okay, but it wasn't anything too standout-ish. I did like the Tripwire story, though. That was a good story. It had some good stories, but it also had some stories that just kind of left me lukewarm. Like Deep Six. I didn't love the Deep Six story.
It's just so incredibly decompressed. I reread Hearts and Mind earlier today to prepare for this, and I'm pretty sure I read the entire 5-issue miniseries. So that's what. I'm trying to do the mental maths. That's 110 pages, I guess. Did I do that? Yeah, 110. Yeah. I read the entire miniseries in 10 minutes flat, if that. It's so decompressed. It is. They're not bad stories. They are neat little kind of character spotlights that sort of get inside the character's head in a way that you couldn't with sort of a regular kind of narrative story, because it isn't really narrative. It is they are character spotlights in their purest form, in that it's literally just sort of the characters doing kind of a monologue, well, not literally to camera. It's they're doing narration over a little montage about themselves somehow.
Yeah,
but it's just so I think like you said, what you're saying, it's as if it was written for film. That's absolutely true. It is really decompressed. It's sort of I mean, yeah. So it's not bad, but yeah, like, I mean, yeah, I think I would have probably felt ripped off paying like full price for a paper single of this. I'll put it that way. Like, considering that a single issue is like maybe like 2 minutes reading. Like, it's like I don't know.
So at this point, I think and this is the funny thing about these early kind of stuff. I'd say at this point it goes right between Last Stand of the Wreckers and Fall of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it's not bad. They are good stories. It's just, they feel like kind of insubstantial.
Yeah,
like I don't know, they're the kind of thing that I think it feels like they're not really kind of. They don't feel like something that should be kind of whole issues. Like, for that kind of story, I'd say maybe kind of cut it down. Cut it down to maybe like 4 pages, and you'd have it as a backup story. If these were kind of backup stories for a narrative comic, I'd think I'd get on well with them. I'd get on better with them, I think. But yeah, just wow.
I almost feel like to compare them to the Transformers spotlights, which might be, I don't know, might be a little unfair, but that's kind of the best comparison I have. It feels almost like they, like, because of just the nature of how they're written, they lack the spotlights in Transformers always had a story they were a story about the character, whereas this is more random snippets, I guess.
Well,
a lot of them don't really form a story. Honestly, my least favorite is still the Deep Six one. That was almost incomprehensible when I read it, quite frankly. I didn't like it at all. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, they are just not narrative fiction. They are sort of, I don't know what the word is, like, are they like soliloquies? Am I remembering the meaning of soliloquy right? I don't know. Yeah. But they're just kind of...
No, that's actually really a good way of thinking about it. It's a kind of almost spoken word kind of poetry kind of thing.
They're non-narrative comics, basically, which, I just think, that... And, there is a time and a place for stuff like that. I don't think it's 2 of them making up a regular issue. I would be super into that kind of thing if it was maybe a little shorter, and then fitting in as a backup in another story. Like, that would be a cool way to do it. Like, kind of the way you have, IDW sometimes reprinted those kind of Transformers Mosaic kind of webcomic things. But they kind of did a lot of the same things, if I remember from what I've read of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it is current. So it goes right between Last Stand of the Wreckers and Fall of G.I. Joe as number 3.
Actually, before we move on, I'll comment on the art briefly as well, in that, because I think it's about half and half Howard Chaykin and Antonio Fuso, isn't it? I think there's maybe one where instead of Fuso, there's someone else. Like, I feel like I remember one of them, the second story not being Fuso. Fuso.
No, I think it was colored differently. Fuso did all the pencils, but it was colored by 2 different artists between the first 2 issues and the last 3. So that might have had something to do with it.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I think that probably is. I don't know, you like. I really like Antonio Fuso's art, and I am kind of lukewarm to sort of negative on Howard Chaykin's art. Whenever Howard Chaykin draws anyone that isn't an adult man, it looks really weird.
Yeah,
he draws adult men fine. They do all tend to look a little similar, but if Howard Chaykin draws a woman or a child, they just look weird and frightening.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, one thing that always bothered me about Howard Chaykin's lines was just how heavy the lines got. I don't know, just thinking back on it, it's a lot of the times it just could be real, just way too heavy ink lines and was not appealing to me. So
I mean Antonio Fuso stuff has sort of that has incredibly heavy inks, but sort of it kind of work. It's a sort of a stylistic choice that kind of works. Whereas, kind of the Howard Chaykin stuff, it just kind of looks busy almost. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't have the issues in front of me because I actually have them in the hardback graphic novel form. Or no, wait, I do have digital copies, but I could bring them up. But I don't know. It's just too many lines, I guess. I don't know if I'm making sense. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, I know what you mean because the way it's coloured as well, sort of the colorist kind of colours a lot of kind of the kind of internal lines. Like if you were looking at sort of the like raw inks of these before the colorist had gone over had done them, like it would look insanely over inked. Like it, I think that's the way I'd put it. It's just really busy as lines. Like everything is sort of textured and detailed within an inch of its life, and just I'm not really a fan.
Yeah. So that's G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds. Next up on Broadside's list was the Transformers Ironhide. Now, I actually really like this mini.
Yeah, it is. I would agree. It's probably the best thing Mike Costa did.
Yeah, it's actually like kind of, it's funny to think about the Costa run and how, it's like, and all the stuff wrong with that, and then this series, it's just like, I actually really like this take on Alpha Trion as, you don't know who I am? I'm Alpha Trion. I'm awesome. And, kind of has a little ego to him, and I like that. He's not just the boring, it's not just the wise old mentor shepherding Optimus Prime to greatness and all that. It's like, no, he has a bit more of a character.
Yeah, kind of Alpha Trion is sort of weird, slightly kind of slightly self-important, very self-important kind of weirdo is kind of like that. Thundercracker are probably kind of Costa's greatest legacies for IDW Transformers.
Yeah, and gosh, who did the art on Ironhide?
Casey Callum, I think, possibly possibly the first and only time he did he was primary artist on something. Like, he'd done sort of single issues on stuff, like he did, I'm trying to think of other single issues. Casey Collar has done. I think he'd done full issues before Ironhide.
Yeah,
but,
he did Spotlight Blur,
he had done full issues before this,
Collar's art is just fantastic. He really draws. I really like the way he draws Transformers. But yeah, I mean, I will say, one thing is about this mini is it's a very quick read. It does kind of move by real fast, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's basically just kind of an extended kind of spotlight for Ironhide, and it's a good series. I really like it. So it's a good little mini.
Yeah. I like Casey Collar art. The thing I always say about Casey Collar art is that it genuinely looks like he has got a bunch of 3D models of all the characters and posed them in modeling software, and then just traced that. It's there is a geometrical kind of perfectness to Casey Collar lines that is always really impressive.
Yeah. Now, having said that, though, I wouldn't say it's better than Last Stand of the Wreckers.
No, but it's like I say, it's a nice kind of nice spotlight story for Ironhide. We get the kind of the flashbacks in a nice, as the first one that's kind of flashing back to the war, and with AXA randomly appearing as sort of a Decepticon infiltrator in the Autobots. Why AXA? Why would you pick AXA?
Because AXA's cool, man. He's got a cool look.
He's not a spy or anything. I don't know. Feels weird. But I mean, I guess IDW had already used Double Dealer.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a minor thing. Besides, like, isn't at least one version of Axter, like, he was an Autobot as well, or am I making that up? I don't know. I might be making that up off the top of my head. Might be talking out my ass, I don't know.
Thinking of, like, this version of Circuit that was a redeco of the...
Oh, maybe I am. I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking that there was an Autobot version of Axter, but...
Oh, there's there was like the aligned version who like teamed up with Starseekers or something, or was a Starseeker. I don't remember. I try not to remember Exiles, frankly.
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know. But yeah. But point is, this is a it's a good solid May series. But I wouldn't put it above The Last Stand of the Wreckers, so I believe... But it's definitely better than Hearts and Minds. Hearts and Minds.
Yes, I would agree with that, yeah.
Yes. Transformers Ironhide takes the number 2 spot.
Yeah. But yeah, because I forget exactly kind of when this came out relative to the main ongoing. I think it wasn't like immediately before they picked things back up with him in the main book, like with Rodimus getting to Cybertron, I don't think. I think it was at least a little while before.
It was, yeah, I feel like it, I want to say it ran, around, let me just go to the TF Wiki and check.
But yes,
May.
It's a nice little kind of, and it works as a standalone story as well, kind of, it's not kind of...
Oh yeah, you really don't need to know
read it in isolation. You don't need to know all the other stuff.
Yeah, it came out shortly after the first arc of the Costa run, so... Oh,
okay, yeah, so not that long after Ironhide actually died in the first place, then.
Yeah, yeah, it was rather quick, actually. So and that's the thing, it's like they allude to Ironhide's death, and to Sunstreaker and to the events of All Hail Megatron, but they don't really, like... It's not too, like... confusing, like I would feel for someone who was picking it up for the first time, so
yeah, I mean it helps that Ironhide is having everything explained to him because he doesn't remember anything that happened before,
which is actually a really interesting narrative idea.
Yeah, it's kind of, you kind of forget about it a bit these days, the fact that I feel like it's been sort of offhandedly established that Ironhide has regained some of his lost memories, I think.
I think so, yeah.
So, like, around about in Combiner Wars, it might have got mentioned offhand, I think, by John Barber.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, because actually rereading it earlier today, it's sort of, like, I don't know. Because I think, the way it's described that Alpha Trion reboot him is that he retrieved his memories from Vector Sigma, but the memories are incomplete because he lost his connection to Vector Sigma when he got shot that one time by AXA, and then after Ironhide got shot on Earth, his spark kind of ended up in that. But I guess the idea is like his spark kind of returned to the Allspark, but then instead ended up in that body, which I don't know, it feels slightly at odds with sort of the later stuff that's being done with sparks and Transformers, in IDW Transformers. Like, there's not quite been sort of, like, it hasn't since been addressed really, the whole idea of like sparks returning to kind of the Allspark and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those things where different writer syndrome is kind of just a thing you have to accept in comics.
Holding against the series, just sort of on it as kind of a curiosity.
All right. Yeah. So lastly, Broadside suggested the G.I. Joe 2-parter with all the historic Cobra commanders. Now this raises an interesting question about about what we consider a story, because that story was originally written as its own solo thing, but it was later collected with the Siren Song 2-parter in the trade Siren Song. So do we consider Siren Song it's the full story, or just the 2-parter?
And yeah, it's two two-parters. The history lesson two-parter and the kind of the I've forgotten her name somehow now. Hashtag recruiting them to go look for fucking Isaac Kraft.
Yeah,
I hate you, Isaac Kraft.
And that's another thing that we have to consider about this about these stories as we rank them is not only how good are they in and of themselves, but their impact on later stories. I feel like it's something we have to address. Is how did this thing affect later stories? And that's the thing. And this is a nice fun little. This is a nice little two-parter that recounting all these various kind of the history of Cobra Commander. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was where the idea of Cobra being a Sentries organization was more, at least more defined, if not outright kind of.
Yeah,
stated.
I feel like it's not kind of 100% kind of confirmed in this until this point that Cobra is really pretty super old.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, this is a neat. Yeah, this is not a bad story in and of itself, but it is unfortunately the story that gives us Siren, and gives us Isaac Kraft.
Isaac's not in this first two-parter, is he?
He's at the end. He's at the end.
Oh, is he at the end of it?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time to reread this one, so I'm working off my memories.
Yeah, he appears at the very end. That's when we finally get his name, Isaac and all that. And it's one of those things. Siren's I'll work for you, Cobra, but you better return my son to me safely. And they're like, well, we'll keep your son safe by taking him to a friggin' Hitler youth camp, basically. But that's the thing. This story introduces Siren and gets us the garbage fire that is Isaac in the fall of G.I. Joe. A character I, quite frankly, hate. I hate this kid with a fucking passion.
I'm not gonna hold it against this story because, there was nothing making Karen Travis. I remember actually when I first read Volume 4, that it was honestly kind of surprising that the new writer had picked up, Isaac Kraft and Siren from the last series and sort of built the entire new story around them. But I like this little story. It's just really fun seeing all the weird old Cobra commanders and all their sort of variations on sort of, because they all sort of I feel like all their kind of costumes sort of play on at least one version of at least one traditional Cobra Commander costume. Pirate Cobra Commander's got a sort of a bandit mask on, which plays into the sort of sheet on his head Cobra Commander mask.
Yeah.
And then the kind of the sort of 1915 one's got kind of a shiny metal mask that with eye holes, to be fair, but that plays into the original Cobra Commander helmet. And
I personally like the Alighieri, the Dante era one with the almost masquerade.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. And because I think is the Japanese one the earliest. I think that of the stories.
No.
Oh wait, no.
No. The Dante one's in the 1300s.
Oh right, yeah.
No, it was mid 19th century was when the Yakuza was established.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking the Japanese one was set earlier than it was, but looking it up now, no, it's...
Yeah, no, that's...
But no, that's definitely the best of the past Cobra Commander costumes, with, the big collar that's, the kind of Cobra hood, and,
Yeah, well, and and the, the Cobra, thing forming the, part of his cloak, I dig it. Plus I'm a fan of 13, that kind of era, late Middle Ages kind of stuff, so I'm down.
I really love the idea of Cobra as like a weird cult instead of just like vanilla secret terrorist organization.
Oh yeah,
Cobra is like a weird ancient snake cult. Is like big thumbs up for me. So yeah, I like this. I like this story. It's not sort of groundbreaking. It's not sort of a masterpiece of storytelling, but it's very cool in its content, and I like what it added to the universe.
All right, so definitely goes above Hearts and Minds, I'd say.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't say that it's better than the Ironhide mini, though.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree.
Yeah, so right between there.
Yeah, I think, because it's sort of just by virtue of it telling sort of a bunch of little sort of mini stories. It's not stories. It's sort of I don't know. I'm not sure how to sort of express it, but yeah, sort of it's I'd say it's kind of cooler in sort of it's kind of in its kind of what it adds to the universe more than it is kind of as a story in its own right, which probably has to put Ironhide up above it. Yeah.
I mean, I would say like a good kind of test is like, which would you rather read if you were like walking out the door and like gonna pick up something to read? Would you rather pick up, and I personally would probably rather pick up the Ironhide book, personally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so. The History of Cobra, 2-parter. That locks in at number. It takes number 3 in our rankings. So yes. Thank you very much, Broadside, for that list. Moving on, our next list comes from. Let's see who comes from Razor Primer. He nominates G.I. Joe Cobra and Shadow Play. So first, let's talk G.I. Joe Cobra. That's of course the first miniseries by Mike Costa and Gage. This is a really good mini. It really is.
It's kind of the thing about Cobra is I think I've always kind of thought about Cobra since reading is it's not necessarily like a genre of story that I'm into, but it's a really well executed example of that genre, which is the sort of kind of gritty, sort of realistic, kind of morbid spy drama, and it is a fantastic job of being a gritty spy drama. And I'm not a person who would sort of go looking for gritty spy dramas to pick up, but I'm not going to deny that that Cobra mini is a really good gritty spy drama.
Yeah, I'm very much the same way. I mean, I will always prefer my G.I. Joes be, like superheroes fighting monsters and Cobra being a, evil supervillain organization. But I mean, even I have to admit, like this is the kind of like dark and gritty G.I. Joe that I can get behind. And because it is just a really well executed series, it's very well constructed in terms of just in terms of it, how it is as a comic. It's very well constructed in terms of like panels. I will say this: I was not a huge and really it's a character piece about Chuckles and the fact that and sort of how him being involved in Cobra kind of affects him, and of course there's that. I'll admit I didn't love the scene where he killed Jinx because
it's unnecessary. It is a very unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that she's one of the few female characters in the book too, especially, is not great.
This is one of your 3 debut series, and you're essentially fridging one of your sort of significant female characters for kind of like shock value and to motivate Chuckles.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I honestly didn't find this version of Jinx quite, and granted, I say this maybe as someone who came from who the media, like the G.I. Joe stuff I had seen before was like Renegades and the movie and all that, where she's Storm Shadow's cousin and was part of the Arashikage. But it's like this version was really only Jinx, and that she was an Asian woman, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So definitely the inclusion of Jinx, I feel like, was on the lower part. But it is still a really good mini-series, and I definitely would recommend it to people who want a more serious and gritty G.I. Joe. And, of course, it introduced Tomax and Zaymot into the IDW universe, which would have huge ramifications down the line, especially for our favorite series, Revolutionaries.
That kind of... Well, I guess from... like most of the universe's future, kind of after Cobra 2, just Tomax. But like they're a great pair of villains in IDW, and Tomax especially goes on to be probably he is probably the best IDW G.I. Joe villain, I would say. He's just a complete slimy bastard. He's a terrible person. But he's very engaging with it. Kind of, he's a love to hate them villain. He's got a personality. He's got kind of like he's got a sort of like he's a bit of a kind of a self-serving kind of slimy sort of Starscream type, and he's certainly a lot more interesting than like I don't know like Crake.
Yeah.
Why was Craig made the new Cobra Commander? It's like, yes, let's pick the most boring of all the Cobra Commander characters, candidates to become Cobra Commander.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things they probably pick Craig just because any other character would then not, have, like, lose their kind of uniqueness and all that. But anyways, back to focusing on...
He is a great character, and he's introduced well.
Yeah. And, of course, the special... like the Cobra special was a great, like character piece for Tomax and Zaymot. And again, like I said, brilliantly constructed. So I mean, this was a really good series, and I think the fact that it defied it got us to both to like it despite our usual tastes. I think that's a really good testament. So. I would almost say put it above Ironhide.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree. Yeah, it is. It's a very well executed. Beyond, the very questionable choice of killing Jinx. It's just guys don't. But it is. It's otherwise very well executed. Like the art is great. Antonio Fuso doing a very good job, and it's his style is very well suited to the story that's being told, I think.
Oh yeah,
and Costa and Christos Gage, great job in writing. Yeah, it's a very well executed series. I would not put it above Wreckers on the list. Certainly, I don't think it's got more significant flaws, I would say, than Wreckers. But I wouldn't hesitate in agreeing to put it above Ironhide.
Yeah. All right, so that's G.I. Joe Cobra. Next up from Razor Primer, he suggested Shadow Play, the 3-parter from More Than Meets the Eye. And here's something I wanted to bring to... I was thinking about when I was rereading Shadow Play. I would almost dare say that we need to wait and judge More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light as a single thing. Because it really, like... I almost feel like More Than Meets the Eye is one big continuous story, and if it weren't for the and I would be fine ranking Shadow Play outside of that if it weren't for the fact that there are still the present day scenes in Shadow Play.
So even the present day scenes are as little story unto themselves. The past story is about all the stuff with the Matrix and Decepticons and everything. And the present day story is about Red Alert's suicide attempt and how everyone reacts to it. So I think, it is okay to judge all the Meets the Eye arcs individually. I feel like they are like I don't know, yeah, it's like, and James Roberts has said as much, that sort of he structures it kind of like a TV series, and sort of it is kind of, this is a three episode as such story. It's obviously not completely self-contained. It is part of an ongoing plot, but like, I don't think it's any less self-contained than, say, like Infiltration. Say, is, you could argue that kind of basically all the kind of main Nations miniseries are one big story, because they are, but they're also kind of, each mini is also sort of its own kind of smaller kind of sub-story. And so Shadowplay it's a sub-story, no doubt, but it's still a story in its own right, I'd say.
All right, fair enough. It was just something I was thinking about earlier today after I read it. It's
a good point. It's sort of, it very much is sort of a cog in a larger story, but the individual cogs, I'd say it's still a story.
Yeah, but yeah. So now, as to Shadowplay, I mean, Shadowplay is a really good story, in and of itself. It is one of those things that is kind of a sequel to Chaos Theory in a lot of ways. But yeah, it definitely like set up a lot as far as like the Senator Shockwave and a lot of that goes. I'll be honest, I'm kind of having a tricky time figuring out where I would place it though.
Because actually, rereading it earlier today, one thing I'd sort of forgotten a bit is the bookend sequences in the bar in the present day are really funny. Like, that sort of the bookend sequences in Shadowplay are kind of more than meets the eye on its kind of comedy A game. Just all the stuff like the gag with Will playing with one's eyebrows and the password into the bar, and the spray painting my hands gags, and Drift narrating Ratchet as thanking Primus and Adaptus and things with his hands, and Ratchet yelling about him being an unreliable narrator. Sort of it's like, I don't want to turn this into me whining about Lost Light, but like it made me sort of miss when More Than Meets the Eye was more consistently funny and less sort of depressing a lot of the time.
Yeah,
I guess it's sort of it's the evolution of the story to a degree. It's sort of closer to the big end game, things get a bit sort of darker. But I do sort of long for sort of when we could get a lot more kind of everyone sitting around kind of being sad but also having a laugh kind of content. And then the flashback story is also very good. It's sort of especially I like the last part where it turns into a heist movie. Heist movies are great, so just Transformers heist movie is I'm up for that.
Yeah, and it definitely did a lot to kind of go into the backstory of like a lot of the characters. I mean, heck, this is like some of the first setup. One could argue of Tarn's true identity with Glitch and all that. So obviously, like going back and reading the long game, definitely had a lot of interesting stuff. It definitely Shadowplay is a really good story, but I will say I am having a hard time placing it.
I noticed rereading it is that like the art is like there is some kind of weak guest inking in Shadowplay. Like, I didn't remember it from before, but looking back in it, there are quite a lot of pages in it with guest inkers. It's not entirely I almost said minked by Ilm, but it's not entirely inked by Milne, and it does show in places, and it's the Bertram colours help sort of like distract you from it, but I think like more than a lot of other artists, it really shows when Milne is not getting inked by himself. Like Milne's inks have a very nice sort of, he varies line weight a lot, and there's kind of a particular look to Milne's inks that the guest inkers rarely manage to replicate well.
Yeah.
Also, like, the colours get weirdly desaturated, but like even by more than meets the eye Bertram colouring standards towards the end of the story. Like, if you look at like the third part of Shadowplay, and the reds particularly, actually, like the colour of Optimus Prime, his chest, it's insanely desaturated. It's just kind of weird, like more so than kind of a red. Relative to how a red normally looks under that kind of colour palette that Bertram had for it. It's like, it's not very bad, just kind of odd.
Yeah.
It sort of, it struck me reading it.
Yeah. I get what you mean. So I guess let's start lower and go up. Would you place it above Ironhide?
I think I would. I think, it's, and I think that's only because it's a bit tighter. I feel as like Ironhide is good, but
it's a bit tighter, and it left more of an impact on the wider narrative.
Sort of Ironhide, it's a bit it's a bit kind of a bit looser, a bit more sort of character exploration-y. But Shadowplay is it's pacey, it's tight, it's an adventure, and it's also got a lot of great kind of comedy stuff in the present day. So I've put it above Ironhide, I think.
All right. Would you put it above Cobra?
Yeah, this is the thing where I kind of stumble. I'm not sure. It's hard to compare because there's such different stories.
I know. That's that's the thing that's throwing me at this point. Is it's hard to say whether it's a better story than Cobra, but I do think personally, if it in terms of if I said, if I had this, if it was these two things were on my desk and I was getting ready to I was looking for some reading material to on a bus or something, I would probably pick Shadowplay, quite frankly.
I agree there, and I think part of me is are you being objective? Do you just like it more because it's funnier and less serious? But then also everything we say on this podcast is subjective because
what are you talking about? This is a 100% scientifically accurate, completely objective list. Okay, we use science.
Yeah. Our opinions are facts.
Yes,
everyone gets to have opinions that are facts, but ours are. But I think
our opinions are factually our opinions.
That is true. Yeah.
So I would say by a very narrow margin, I would put Shadowplay above Cobra.
Yeah,
but it is.
I will fully admit that is. For me, that is as much my sort of genre preferences as it is sort of a kind of objective assessment of quality. But I think that is a good test, is the sort of which would you prefer to pick up and reread, and it would be Shadowplay for me, I think.
Yeah. So, all right. So Shadowplay comes in at number 2. So that is our list. So currently, as of right now, we've gone from 2 to 7. So Last Stand of the Wreckers, Shadowplay, Cobra, Ironhide, the history of Cobra, for lack of since it doesn't really have a story title in and of itself. G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds, and The Fall of G.I. Joe. That's our current list. So we're building this thing out. I am excited. I really look forward to seeing what our listeners submit next. So, thank you, Razor Primer, for your submissions. thank you to everyone for submitting. If you would like to submit a story, you can either by joining the AllSpark forums and going into our thread and suggesting stories there. You can go to our Twitter at Hasbro U Podcast and leave your suggestions with the hashtag #rankedsubmit, or you can email us at hasbrouniversepodcast@gmail.com with just include ranked submissions in somewhere in your subject, and we will be sure to take a look at that in our next edition of Hasbro Universe Ranked. Thank you so much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I think that, and non-binary folks everywhere, I think this will just about bring this podcast to a close. So,
we should do next episode. What will we be talking about?
Oh, yes. What are we doing next episode? That's good.
Pull up my list. I have got it down as quite a few.
Yeah, so we probably won't have a ranked segment next time, but the time after that, hopefully.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I think next episode we'll be talking Optimus Prime number 14, Rom and the Micronauts number 1, Till All Are One Annual 2017, Lost Light 12, Transformers vs. the Visionaries 1, Scarlet Strike Force 1, and Gem Dimensions number 2. Wow, yeah.
Yep. So definitely we will not have time for a ranked segment next time. But still, go ahead and submit your lists, and we can be building up for the next session. Thank you once again so much for listening. You can, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can of course find us on our Libsyn page at hasbrouniverse.libsyn.com. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, and of course our great hosts over at allspark.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Hasbro U Podcast, on Tumblr at hasbrouniversepodcast.tumblr.com, and that's pretty much all of our social medias. And following us those two places, you are sure to get the latest news regarding the Hasbro Universe, because we are on the ball like that. Callum, where can our lovely listeners find more of you on the internet?
I can be found in many of the places you would expect to find a Transformers fan. The AllSpark, TF Wiki, Twitter, Tumblr, those kinds of things. All under the username Jala Guy, Jala Guy.
Yes, and of course you can find me on Twitter at Daniel Adkins PRD. You can find me on the AllSpark as Daniel Adkins. The IDW Hasbro Wiki, TF Wiki, the usual places, so thank you so much. Once again, we really do appreciate you listening to us, and because this and what I just now realized, this is going to be the last episode of the year 2017. So just from all of us here at Action Adventure, all two of us. Thank you so much for listening to us for this past year. We look forward to seeing you in next year, and please have a very happy holidays, all the holidays, whatever you celebrate or whatever you don't celebrate. Still have a just a happy Friday or happy Thursday or happy whenever day you're listening to this. So thank you so much for listening, ladies, gentlemen, non-binary folks. We will see you all in 2018.
Yeah, goodbye.